channels and how you target a moving target. And Randy Giacchino, who is the VP of Marketing at Weleda, is going to talk about the ways in which they have been tracking consumers as they move as they like across various different channels, pick up content and pick up inspiration for your brand in many different ways, how you actually track and target that consumer that no longer is following the old rules of the consumer journey. Randy is the VP of Marketing at Weleda North America. She has been working in this in the category of beauty and wellness for a number of years, working with brands like Colgate-Palmolive, Revlon, and SC Johnson. Please welcome Randy.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here as the VP of Weleda, and we are a natural skincare brand that's been around for nearly 100 years, but we are the best kept secret in North America. So I was brought on to the management team about 3 years ago because the company wanted to invest in North America to grow in the natural and organic space, which is growing at double-digit growth and far surpassing all those numbers we saw this morning. So it's really important area for the company. So I'm here to talk about building and rebuilding audiences in real time, because once you find an audience, it doesn't stop there. You actually have to continue to look at what you're doing and rebuild every single day. This is not working. There we go. Okay, so the heart of the marketing plan. As marketers, we're taught to start with the consumer, and we were taught to start with our core target, what's her demographics, and then we built our marketing message to reach her, and then it was fairly easy to reach her. In my case, for our company, it's a her. And we didn't even think of having a conversation with her, let alone thinking of, okay, we're talking at her, but how do we even influence her? In today's world, it's completely different. And everything we learned, well, a lot of what we learned, you can throw out the window. So there is no more linear process for getting to the consumer. There's not one consumer, there's hundreds, if not thousands of consumers. And as marketers, we have to find a way to blend traditional fundamentals of what we learned and match it with what are today's world's realities. We have to be scrappy, we have to be flexible, we have to be in constant test, learn, and move on mode, and we have to move fast. So essentially, we have to build and rebuild our target as we go along. So where do we start? Well, we still start with who is our consumer and understanding her, not just as a demographic, but as a person. And this goes back to what we just heard from Kelsey, which is learning about her persona, what makes her tick, what does she do, what are all the facets of her life, because she's more than just a consumer or a shopper, and we need to reach her wherever she is. We have to not only reach her, but we have to engage her and make sure that she wants to engage with our story and listen to us. So where did we start at Weleda? And that is, we did our traditional consumer research. We didn't even know who was buying our product at the time or what the space was about. So we had to start with the normal research that most marketers are familiar with, which is a consumer questionnaire, and we did a consumer segmentation. But what we did that I hadn't really worked on before was we took digital audiences and asked her questions within that segmentation so that we would be set up for success when we had to get into the digital world, and we already would know how to reach her. So we baked those questions in to our primary research to give us a digital starting point. Then what we did was we employed a reverse segmentation. So we had a little bit of sense of who she was, and now we started there, but we also added hundreds of other audiences to this. And we started from a huge funnel and tested those audiences individually. And we did a segment building approach off of that, and we started layering them. Well, what if we took this audience that does really well and layer it with that one? Would that do better or worse? And ultimately, we arrived at hundreds of qualified audiences versus our one target. So we went from one consumer target, which we called Cheryl, and we got to 575 audiences that we found that were above average on some sort of engagement measure with our brand, whether it be engagement, whether it be a click-through, whether it be a conversion, but these people all resonated with our brand, and that's pretty amazing to be able to go from 1 to 575. So this is just a glimpse of some of those 575 that rose to the top. So here we have performance based on each audience target, and a lot of these audience targets are layers. So if you see a plus sign, that means it's a layering of more than one audience. And as a result of this testing layering, you could see who does better, or even better than our target that we thought. So Cheryl's the dark green, and she's 63.5% more likely than the average person to engage or click through with one of our ads. But then there's this other group called news and celebrities, and they're at 150%. So who knew that a natural and organic brand would resonate for a target that's news and celebrities? But the highest one on our entire list of the 575 is actually a group that is more apt to make New Year's resolutions, be interested in what we called pseudoscience, which is astrology and horoscopes and those type of things. And that's our number one audience when we tested programmatic. So it's pretty amazing. Every audience represents a revenue stream, and you get to audiences that you didn't even know would be interested in your brand. I mean, obviously, when you're writing down your persona, I don't know that reads their horoscope would actually pop up in when you're describing your persona, but here she is, number one. So it's not just about finding your target and then serving an ad. It's actually being where your target is at any point of any day and speaking to her in that exact moment. To do that, you obviously have to do more research. And what I love about online is that you can be spending media and reaching your target and doing research at the exact same time, so nothing is wasted. We quickly test through tons of creative and tons of variables, and we fail fast, and we learn, and we move on. So we test variables like a talent model in an ad versus a product, a benefit claim, or talking about the ingredient. Different copy for the same visual, and we test through all of that very quickly after defining the variables, and we get to what works best in total, but also what works best against each target. So these are the results of one of our first campaign that we did here for the relaunch in North America. And you can see here, these are the same 5 targets that we saw on that list on the other page. So Cheryl's in the middle, that's the one that was custom built off of the information we had, and then you can see here the pseudoscience on the left, and we have celebrity influenced on the right. And the numbers change. So Cheryl was middle of the pack when we just tested audiences, but when you look at how she does now, she's the highest click-through rate on the entire page because we married up the right content with her. Same for the others. We start bumping up the engagement rate, the conversion rate. I mean, here I'm showing the click-through rate. And we start looking at what resonates. And it's not always what you think. So if someone told me to build an ad to go after New Year's resolution and pseudoscience, I don't know that I'd put a baby ad in there for one of our baby products, but that's the number 2 click-through ad. So you start learning things that you never would have learned had you not done the actual tests. So how do we take that and then transfer that knowledge to the rest of our marketing mix? So we know from programmatic that our top performing audiences are our biggest opportunity, and it's the most data-driven, methodology you could use. Now, when you layer on the rest of the marketing mix, and for us specifically social media, it's really important to not lose that learning. So Jay Baer is a renowned business strategist, and he has a quote that I love. He says, "Content is fire and social media is gasoline." And I love that quote because content can only get you so far, but the social media and the influence, and it's not social media, it's whatever influence is for your brand. For us, it happens to be a lot of social media and earned PR, is the gasoline. And it can take content and make it blow up and and grow sales like you've never seen before, and nothing that you can actually test out and see it specifically. So for us, it's not just about putting out content. We have to influence. We're a skincare and beauty brand, and if you're not influencing to buy skincare and beauty, you're just not going to survive in this space. So where programmatic starts with the audiences, social media starts with the conversations. And we don't want to just take what we learned from programmatic and just think we can automatically transfer to social media. We have to do our due diligence. So for us, it was about identifying the conversations that were happening in social for our target, Cheryl, and in the spaces that we already learned about in programmatic. So for us, you can see here, the green bars are the bars where our target consumer seems to have the most conversations, and the most conversations versus just a general consumer in the beauty space. But we can't necessarily insert our brand into every conversation. I mean, if we're a skincare brand talking about food, that'd be a little strange. Or even politics. Do we want to talk about politics? Probably not right now. So we'll stick to where we can play and where we have something to add to the conversation. And for us, it was in the health and wellness space, in the beauty space, and in the mom space. Those are the areas that fit not only to our brand, but to the conversations and to what we learned in programmatic. So the next step is identifying those areas in the social media world to find out who is influencing those conversations. If I mapped those conversations, who is consistently in the center, on the periphery, and that's how we did it at Weleda. So we mapped the conversations. Not only did we see who influenced our consumer, but it's interesting because there are influencers of the influencers, and the biggest is not always the best. So we look for the people that have the most influence, not the most followers. And that's really important, especially for a small brand like us. We don't have the money, to have Kim Kardashian, but we do have the money to have people that Kim Kardashian follows, or maybe people that follow her follow someone else. And basically it all gets to the same place. And sometimes it sounds even more authentic because it is not from a big time influencer. So I'm going to show you 3 influencers, and they're all very different. And Katie Deno is a celebrity makeup artist, but she is all about green beauty. She's extremely passionate about green beauty and is trying to further even the celebrities she works on to use clean products. She not only reaches consumers, but she reaches a ton of makeup artists, which are really important for our brand because then they influence consumers. So she has less than 40,000 followers. She's not a giant influencer, but she has 23 connections in that network of beauty, which is huge, because I'll show you some other ones that are bigger than her but have less connections. So she's very influential. Not only do we look at that, we look at what media outlets follow her or use her for their quotes. And so she's all the way connected to Women's Wear Daily, Glamour, Into the Gloss. These are huge beauty publications that move the needle on your brand very quickly. Next, we have Taryn Toomey. So Taryn Toomey is an influencer. She happens to be one of the very few, if not the only, influencer that crosses the direct intersection of beauty and fitness. So Taryn Toomey is founder of The Class. You can look it up. It's very interesting. It's a workout for the mind and body that's growing quite rapidly in popularity. She has some celebrities that take her class, like Jennifer Aniston, and she's kind of rising to fame. Her connections are quite different than Katie because she crosses over to fitness, which is awesome because we saw the social conversations, and fitness was a huge bump for us. So she has slightly more followers, way less connections. So that's what I was talking about. Followers does not equal connections. And she gets to publications like Yoga Journal, but also publications like Allure. So a great influencer when we're trying to be in both spaces. And lastly, this is Valeria Hinojosa. And she is an advocate in sustainability and also has a big spirituality bent to her, which is amazing because she fits perfectly with that astrology, horoscope person, and also people interested in sustainability, which our brand is as well. She gets to a completely different place in the map. So you can see her space that she covers very different than the other two. And what we learned in programmatic from her is what works best is having her talk about things on a more spiritual level to reach her followers. She's bigger, both in followers and connections, but again, she gets to a completely different space. So I'm going to show you some of their content so you can see how the same exact thing we did for programmatic, which was matching the content to the audience, we do in social. But it's actually less work for us here because the influencer, if you let them do what they do best and let them talk about your product the way that their followers will appreciate, their content works better. Oh, there's no sound.
Que tú veas que con los ojos cerrados se escucha mejor mi canción.
And now I'm going to show you, that was obviously a facial care product. Now we have Katie Jane Hughes, who is a celebrity makeup artist, quite large, pretty glam, and she talks about our facial care and other products in a completely different way.
And I went in with the smoothing facial lotion from the Wild Rose line. And then I did use Skin Food on the high points of my face where I had this shine.
And on the limbs. Like now if I was going out, I would put it all over my legs and arms. And I have to stress,
sure.
actually, a lot of people DM me and they're like, I can't get Skin Food to spread over my face. This is how I use it on my skin. I always melt it down first. And even if I don't, I kind of know how to spread it. Now it's starting to get grippy because it is an emollient texture. But you really can just like keep sweeping it around. And even though you think it might not be moving, it is, I promise. And you know, just like, it feels different to an everyday cream because it is different to an everyday cream. It's very, very rich and shiny. And you would not get that finish and shine if it wasn't this texture.
So that was a pre-Oscar Instagram takeover that her and a celebrity hair artist did for us. So all this is great, but how much does it cost? Seems like there's a lot of stuff going on that takes a lot of time and money. So here's the value of getting it right. Here is our programmatic, what we started with in terms of the cost per engagement, all the way to where we are now. So you can see here, it started quite high. This is when we very first did our audience testing at $45. And now we are down to $7, which is well below even the hurdles we give ourselves to what we would want to spend per engagement. And we see the same thing with influencer. So influencer is even more efficient given the great power it has, and obviously the influence piece comes through. So we started at $1.90 cost per engagement, and now we've almost halved it to 88 cents. So this is not, we have a pretty small marketing budget. We make our money go so extremely far because of all the data we look at and how we keep learning and moving on and just throwing things out that don't work. So beyond just costs and all these, go ahead. All these variables, we also want to look at the conversations. So it's not just about, did we get the cost down? It's what are people talking about? So for us, we want to make sure they're talking about what we want them to talk about. So the chart on the left is what we saw people, this is from social listening, what people were talking about Weleda before we started our journey here. And they were talking about everything. It was not concentrated. The Weleda stretch is actually a stretch mark oil we have that we had a contest on, so that was the thing that was talked about at that time, but it's all over the place. The one on the right is we took a dipstick when, after our skin food campaign this year, of what were people talking about in May, and this is what they were talking about. So for 4 months, we had been talking about skin food and Weleda skin food, and like I said, we have fairly small budgets, and they were talking about exactly what we wanted them to talk about. And the more people are talking about the same thing, then it just amplifies your spend even beyond that. And lastly, of course, we all want sales. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And from what we do in programmatic and influencer and other parts of the marketing mix, we've been able to grow this brand, way past what the benchmarks are and the trends are for natural and organic. So we have double-digit retail growth. We're outpacing nearly all of our competitors. We grew on our own D2C website, which is obviously why we're all here. We grew 54% versus a year ago, and that's outpaced all of our other retail channels. We had the #1 rank after the skin food campaign of the #1 personal care SKU in the natural channel, and that goes across all categories, just the #1 SKU. And not only do we have that, but we also have the influence. So we have influencers now coming to us, micro-influencers coming to us, wanting to work with our brand, and they're asking to be paid just with product. They don't even care if they, get paid. So it's an amazing place to be when you can use the power of data in digital.
European natural beauty brand Weleda struggled to capture category growth after being outspent 20-1 by competitors. So we used data science and creativity to outsmart them. Rather than relying on what customers say, we studied how they behave in real life with a massive real-time message test with millions of customers. This allowed us to earn while we learn. We harmonized tens of millions of data points and hundreds of messages to uncover what was most motivating to Weleda buyers and what wasn't. Turns out when you're learning what works in real life with millions of real customers, you get insights far more potent and certain. We uncovered 575 sub-segments. We discovered common blogs, charities, beverage consumption, and shopping habits. Some groups were politically motivated, others practiced yoga regularly, and many were inclined to make New Year's resolutions. Weleda was a daily dose of nature to get them all back in balance. The Inner Nature campaign was born. Weleda's plant-rich lifestyle and philosophy of mindfulness help customers reconnect with the nature inside of us to let beauty shine through. And who better to help tell that story than well-established natural beauty influencers who are already Weleda users? We hosted half-day content capture sessions with each of them, and for the cost of a single 30-second commercial, generated over a year's worth of authentic story content. From continuous experimentation to programmable bidding to custom algorithms, the campaign is designed to programmatically optimize the best messages for every audience to drive the best outcome. Make that beautiful outcomes. In just 3 months, Weleda saw double-digit growth in consumption and leapfrogged over 5 competitors to claim the #4 spot in the category. Further proof that when data science and creativity get together, we engineer beautiful things.
Thank you.
Randy, thanks so much. We have time for questions of Randy.
I My name is Kendall. I love the cost per engagement story you talked about. I thought it really beautifully depicts kind of the programmatic growth story and landscape. And obviously it varies brand to brand for how long it's going to take you to go from that $45 to that efficient $7 cost per engagement. But can you share like what that kind of average cycle looked like for you at Weleda?
Sure. So the $45 was about 2.5 years ago. The $7 is our most recent campaign. But we got from 45 to less than 20, I would say, in a matter of like 2 months, just from the testing, because the 45 is literally from when you had no data. So it can happen quite rapidly, and then once you get the creative, that's just the audience, and then once you get the creative in, it starts dropping. So that's why we're doing a facial care campaign right now, and the facial care is a high engagement category. So that's why we just, I guess, taking the audience with the content, we're really getting that down even further.
How and where were you overpaying?
I'm sorry?
How and where were you overpaying at that top end?
With the audience, with certain audiences, we're just expensive.
You were targeting expensive audiences.
Yeah.
And you were able, okay.
Partly that, and then also partly the creative wasn't factored in. So the creative you saw on that page, you know, if you start seeing creative for Weleda now, it looks very different. We had a lot of learning. We needed to stop talking at the brand level because we were introducing the brand. We needed to get right down to product, but somehow weave in the brand. It's almost like a flip.
So it's both audience and impact.
Yeah.
Randy, great chat. Adam with
Thank you.
AdWallet. I had a question on your $7 CPE, and then I had a hard time seeing from here. It looked like a 20 or 30 cent CPE on the social influencer side. For you guys, what's that E? Was that a sale? Was that a click? What was the engagement?
So
Was it an
engagement
action or
is they either click through, or they come to our website and spend more than 2 minutes, or they come to our website and check out more than 2 pages. So that's how we've calculated that.
How were you discovering your influencers?
So we do the mapping, and I work with Story Worldwide, amazing influencer agency, and they map it for us, and then they basically screen for who they think would be a fit for our brand, and then they bring forward certain ones to us, and we say yay or nay, and then we also same test and learn. So the video is was done before we started this year's campaign. That video, the influencers, if you saw them, they look quite, some of them we kept, some of them we didn't, because even with the influencers, we see some are just more authentic. They can get better to their audiences. Our brand somehow fits better, and we get more engagement. And some also, when you work with influencers, we found that sometimes we start seeing they're selling out, so to speak, and start working with brands that we don't feel like is a fit for our values. So we've dropped influencers because, when started working with Aveeno, we're like, okay, that's not, we're really truly natural, so it doesn't fit.
So at the same time you're decreasing your cost of engagement costs, are you seeing other metrics change in terms of, say, lifetime value, order value? Are those things also moving as you're finding these different new targets?
Yeah, we're seeing repeat go up. We're seeing basket, like for this facial care campaign, we've seen basket value go really up. And we see other types of measures that we look at for value go up.
Randy, thank you so much.
Thank
We're going to be
you.
talking about acquisition strategies in just about 15 minutes. Thank you, Randy. Let me ask Eric to come up, who is a walking icon of his own brand. He advertises his own brand. We met Randy last year at earlier this year at our first D2C conference, and this is your 3rd or 4th summit so far. We love having Eric here because he's not only an emblem of his brand, but Brand Beard is a fantastic example of the ways in which a brand that you really didn't think we needed, men's grooming, really aligns with a particular set of values and identity. And one of the things that Eric has been excellent at Beard Brand is sustaining the value of that brand. Last I checked, and in fact I just checked 5 minutes ago, you've got 1.36 million followers on YouTube for a beard brand. Please welcome returning champion Eric Van Hulst.
Might I correct you there and say for the beard brand? There is only one beard brand out there, and that is. Man, I'm super stoked for this conference, and super stoked to get you guys right before lunch. I know you guys are at your highest energy levels right now, so I'll keep it pretty chill so I don't get you too excited here. Now, this conference means a lot to me because the theme is sustainability, and the thing about Beard Brand is we're really focused on sustainability. We're an entirely bootstrap organization. We launched the brand back in 2012 with a YouTube channel, our blog, with our Tumblr page. You guys remember Tumblr? Anyone? I don't think that word has been uttered in any business conference for the past 5 years. But we did launch with a Tumblr account, and we really started with organic content. The company itself, the e-commerce company, that launched in 2013 with a $30 investment onto Shopify and a promise from one of our vendors that we would pay them for the products that they were going to fulfill for us. We ended up investing between the three founders about $8,000 of our own money, and the rest has been through our profits and then, of course, your blood, sweat, and tears and equity and time. So sustainability, like you cannot grow a business to where we're at without the business being sustainable, without having profits, because without that profit, we wouldn't have the resources we needed to grow the business. So a little bit more about us. We're still a small company. We've got about 17 employees, 20 employees, something like that if you count the founders, in Austin, Texas. We're approaching 8 figures, not quite there yet, but it's been a fun ride so far, and we'll get there one day. And no debt, no VCs. You know, it's just entirely our own decisions, and it's a big thing about what I'm going to be talking to you today. As you can tell, our mission is to make men awesome, and our tagline is to keep on growing. So I say these things not to boast, but more to give you insight on what I'm going to be talking about going forward. So the purpose of this talk is, it's not about tactical, it's really about the way you need to think about your organization, your division, your company. The topic is going to be about this, the little red book. So I think I was flying on a plane back from somewhere, and I was looking out the window and flying over like the Grand Canyon. And if you guys have ever flown over the Grand Canyon, it's just like a beautiful sight. It just kind of like, you can't quite comprehend like the enormity of the natural beauty. And for whatever reason that struck me that I wanted to put down 9 different reminders that I kind of tell myself throughout life. Like these are just things where I face adversity and things to help kind of give me guidance. A lot of this is kind of like focused on stoicism and chilling your ego out and having focus on the now and breathing, just kind of stuff like that. So I'm kind of chill, dude. So this book has nothing to do with men's grooming at all. Absolutely nothing. So we printed like a whole bunch of these, and we started including them into orders for free. So every single order that's gone out for the past quarter has gotten one of these books. And for me, you know, this is actually kind of a nerve-wracking thing, because the fear, I have a fear of producing this, because these are my reminders. Like, this is something that's important to me. These are the 9 things that I tell myself. Now, I'm not telling you, like, you have to have these to live a better life, but if you find value from these kind of things, then it's helpful. But the fear is, like, when you produce something like this, then you get messages like this. So this appeared on, I think it appeared on Reddit. And is it just me, or is this a little culty? Odd addition to the box, in my opinion. So, like, I wrote this book, you know, like, any kind of criticisms is like a direct criticism to me. And not only did I write the book, like, I also made the decision to print up a whole bunch of them and include them in all these orders. So, like, any kind of negativity, like, as you guys know this, like, any kind of, like, when you create something, you're going to be open to criticism and you're going to be open to people throwing you down. But on the other end of the side, you got to have confidence in yourself. You have to have the confidence in your mission. And I talked a little bit about our mission, and I want to talk a little bit more in the future about how to build that mission. But you need to have that confidence in your brand. You have to have confidence in yourself, because when you do that, if you only worried about your negative outcomes, about the haters out there who don't get it, who aren't completely aligned with your brand and mission, then you're going to miss on impacting the right people. And you're going to miss all the positive things that are going to come from your actions and through your efforts. So, these are some pretty cool messages. Like, these are the ones that I'm like, yeah, all right, we did the right thing. The book of reminders, pretty cool addition, by the way. Hey, I really enjoyed the book of reminders that came with my recent shipment. Is there any way I can buy a few of these to hand out to my friends? And then even cooler, hey, how do I get 200 of these? I thought it was amazing. I'd like to give a copy to everyone at the hair school that I go to. Please let me know what it would take. So when you're creating content that's aligned with your core values and your mission, then you're finding that your message is being heard and you are making an impact. But I want to explore this a little bit further. You as marketers have a brilliant ability to focus beyond your products and focus beyond the value that your products give, but what your company can do for your customers. And I want to share one more positive comment about how this little book is able to make an impact on our audience. And it's going to be long, so sit with me as I read. But I wanted to say hello and send a personal note to let you know how much I enjoyed reading your book of reminders. I shared a copy with my husband, not telling him anything other than, you should read this. And then it had a profound impact on him. Quick backstory, he was in an accident 9 years ago. His wife was killed and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. Coma for 3 months, not supposed to ever walk, talk, or feed himself. Through will and determination, mostly so he could go home and commit suicide, he was able to leave the hospital after 9 months. Fast forward, he's doing great, fully functioning, got remarried, but he has severe PTSD. Long story, but I wanted to share his story of what an incredible impact your book had on him. Now he's carrying it around and uses it as a reminder that life is good. Stay positive and stop beating himself up. It's given him a daily peace that he so desperately needs. He's so inspired that he asked me where I got it and if I could tell him where to get it printed, because he wants to write something and share it with PATE Rehab. So, for me, this was it made my year, clearly made my year. To be able to have such an impact on someone, to be able to make a difference for someone, it just drives me to want to continue to do more and want to continue to help people. So when we shift this, this kind of inclusion, the reason we did this, the reason that I included this wasn't simply because I had this idea and I wanted to include it and I can do the things I want because I can. It was because when I think about the alternatives on the marketplace, and we all recognize that our customers are free to buy from us and they're free to buy from our competitors and they're free to buy at beardbrand.com or they're free to buy at amazon.com. And I think about what can Amazon do well? Well, Amazon has 1 billion products, right? Amazon can ship really, really fast. And I don't know. For me, those are the only 2 advantages that Amazon has. I'm not a big fan of Amazon. If you didn't know that or not, I can bitch about them off camera. But what can Beard Brand do? So Beard Brand we can have a way better unboxing experience. We can include free things like this. We can have a way better customer experience. We have style consultants that help guys. You send us our photo, and we'll tell you, what kind of haircut you need. Is Amazon ever going to do that? Maybe, but I can't see it. We think about the hard ways that we can win our customers because we recognize that they are free to buy from us and they're free to buy from somebody else. So you need to think about that as you're establishing your brand and the values that you bring. But what is a brand? To me, it's super simple. A brand is a promise. And this was talked about earlier in the intro. brands were established during the, what did he say, the Industrial Revolution to build trust, right? So we want to build that trust, and it's a promise. It says, I want to do this for you guys, and then you deliver on that promise, and you do that a long enough period of time, then you start to build that trust. And ultimately, investing in your brand is investing in the future, because the more you put into the brand about what you're about, what your company's about, what your products are about, then it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper down the road to be able to sell that same thing, because that knowledge has already been imprinted in your target audience about what you're about. So, yeah, man, brands are great, as you guys should know. So, here's how you build a brand. For anyone who doesn't know how to build a brand, it's really super simple. It's like stupidly simple. So simple that they hired me to come up on stage to talk about it. That's how simple it is. First thing you got to do is you got to establish your core values. You know, like these are, geez, man, it's like in every business book around the world, core values. What are our core values? Freedom, hunger, and trust. For us, we like to have them pretty simple. We like to have just simple words. It gives you a little more flexibility. But when you think about our core values, I like to think about it as a triangle. Can you all see? Triangle? All right. So freedom, trust, and hunger, they work in a triangle. They work in harmony. They work in balance. Because if you have, let's say you have someone with like super freedom, right? They just show up to work whenever they want to show up. They work on whatever project they want to work on. They, they're total free spirit. Maybe they don't work at all. Then they've pulled that freedom triangle point way out, and then it's essentially destroyed the trust or the hunger part of the triangle. Does that make sense? Like, so if you pull it out of whack, you got to have it in balance. So in my opinion, you got to have core values that work with each other. Now, there are some companies that have like 11 core values, and they're like these long written out sentences. And that's cool as well, like if that's the way you want to build your business, but you have to make sure that it's integrated so much into your culture that every single person working at your organization can tell you those core values. Like you go to anyone at Beard Brand and you ask them what our core values are, they're going to know, because not only is it everywhere, it's how we hire people. It's the first question we ask during the interview process is, our core values are freedom, hunger, and trust. What does that mean to you? And then when we talk about how are we going to pick a vendor or how are we going to make this decision for serving our customer, it's like, how do our core values come into play? So your core values are your organizational foundation. In addition to that, your mission is also part of that foundation. Like, why are you even in business? Like, what's the purpose of doing this stuff you're doing? You know, are you just digging a hole in the ground and filling it back up? Or are you actually bringing value to the world? Our mission is to make men awesome. And the reason we're doing this is because we believe deep down in our root that when we make men awesome, when a man invests in himself, when he takes care of himself, he grooms himself, he finds style, he takes care of his health, and he looks in the mirror and he loves that person who's looking back at him, that he now has that confidence to take care of his family. He has that confidence to become a better father, to become a better partner. And then that grows to become a better team member, a better employee, a better boss, a better leader. And then it grows to the community to become a better community leader. And ultimately, we believe at Beard Brand that we can impact world, the society that we live in, through empowering men to be better men, to be amazing, to be awesome. And it starts from the bottom. It doesn't start from the top with policy changes and, you know, all these buzzwords and politics. We just got to get people to be a little bit better today, and then a little bit better tomorrow, and then a little bit better down the road. And that's how we're going to make an impact on the world. The third step, I would say, is kind of optional. Like, I think a tagline kind of needs to come to you. Like the classic ones, everyone knows Nike, just do it. It's brilliant. Ours, we went through a few different iterations, and we settled on keep on growing. Obviously, in my opinion, a great tagline is going to be a short tagline, to the point, And it's going to tie into your products and your brand. Obviously, for us, like keep on growing your beard or your hair, but also keep on growing as an individual, becoming a better version of yourself. Now you have the foundation, right? Now you have the base. Now you know what you're about, why you're doing things. This is where the creative comes into play, right? When you think of a brand, usually the first thing that everyone thinks about is like, oh, the font colors, or the font styles, and the website colors, and the photography, and all these like beautiful things. Well, you can't build any of those if you don't like truly understand why you're in business, you know, and why you're doing the things you're doing, and how you're communicating with the people you want to communicate with. Like, once you have that foundation, then you're going to be able to understand it. It's like, okay, well, our target audience is men. We should probably show photos of men, right? No? You guys want some lunch, huh? But, you know, like, subsequently, in our industry, there's kind of like the answer to that actually may not be true. Like, some of our competitors will, like, show pictures of half-naked women and, you know, like, challenge people's masculinity and stuff like that. Whereas we go the opposite direction. It's all about the individual. It's about becoming a better person. And, you know, we're not using, you know, sex to sell our brand. We're using self-improvement and guidance to build our brand. So those kind of things do play into the decision of how you're going to be integrating your creative assets. Now, building a brand is that promise, and you want to build that promise. You want to have that consistency over time. So you need to be consistent, because, you know, it's like if you're shifting your promise all the time, no one's going to know what that promise is. They're going to, who is this guy? But at the same time, like, markets change, markets shift. Your company grows. You add new products. You enter new markets. You have to be adaptable and malleable. You have to be able to craft your promise over time. So, you know, just as an example of how it's okay to change and shift, like, these are some of our old taglines and missions. Be proud of your beard, be proud of your lifestyle. I mean, I think I put that up on my first YouTube video, and that was the end of it. It was like one video. And then we evolved that to, like, style for the urban beardsman. It was more of kind of like announcing who we were serving, but it wasn't really, you know, giving aspiration or guidance on what we're doing. And then we got like a little more like, you know, rah, let's go change the way society views beardsmen. And then our most recent mission was to foster confidence through grooming, which was a little wordy and a little, you know, like past tense to foster confidence. So we just want to make men awesome. It's just real simple, and it helps us with how we're going to craft our emails, how we're going to craft our ads and our content. Now, this is the most important thing, and probably the hardest thing to do, is you need to think of your brand as you're making strategic decisions. One thing that we want to do at Beard Brand is we want to maintain like a premium, we want to maintain a premium product offering. In our mind, like, premium means like no sales, no discounts, no like hustling, no like gizmos on the little spinner wheels on the website. You guys know those. Those are great for some brands, and I'm not against them. They're just not what we want to entail for our brand. And what happens is people make strategic decisions that put your brand at risk. And what are these? Like, for instance, we could have chosen to work with a venture capitalist, right? And venture capitalists, typically their number one metric is growth at all costs. And, you know, when you put growth above all other things, you're putting growth above your brand, right? You're putting growth above your customer. And what that causes you to do is to start to make decisions that have to drive growth, you know? So maybe you're advertising in ways, maybe half-naked women are very effective from a growth standpoint, but it's not very effective for your brand. But the VC is like, hey, man, if you don't hit those numbers, you're not getting your next round, you're going to be washed up, you're going to be, you know, on the side of the curb wishing that I don't know what the VC life is like. Or, subsequently, if you take on a lot of debt, you take on a lot of outside money, then you're out of cash, right? So you're out of cash, and you're like, oh, I got to liquidate some inventory. So put everything on sale. And then you have these like boom and bust of your stuff where you can't maintain the sanctity of your brand. So it's crucial that as you're building things out, that your strategies are based around the integrity of your brand. So that's a big reason why we haven't taken outside money, why we've stayed debt-free. And we're more okay with slower, sustainable growth than we are growth at all costs. And that, my friends, is how you build a killer brand.
And Eric, as always, thank you very much. Eric is going to lead the roundtable that starts now on building sustainable brands, and to show us what an awesome guy he is and how hardy he is. His is the round table because we have limited space here. We're going to have that round table right outside, so you'll be an outdoorsman and put your beard to good use. Eric Bandholz, everybody, thanks very much. We are going to move to roundtables now, and again, Eric's towards sustainable strategies. If you go out this door and make a left and go straight outside, his table will be right outside the door. The next table will be new customer